Today's project, we will be doing a gear set, ARB air locker, as well as wheel bearings on an 11.5 inch AAM rear axle in this Dodge pickup truck. Almost out of there. There we go. Inner bearing and seal. Blocks aren't quite high enough. Oh, never mind. Power race. Get that cleaned up. Pound some new races in. This will melt out, but this is one of those things that will allow me to not worry about burning these bearings up in the first few miles, knowing that they have lube. So that's what we'll do. do it. I'm gonna use a bigger one. Pack this one. Torque spec for the hub bearings is 22 foot-pounds. Then we'll back it off until the previous notch aligns with our keyway. So, for whatever reason, that seal didn't want to ride up to the right spot. All I did was go around and give her some left taps. And now that nut's loose again. So, I think it should go further. Oh yeah. Significant. That looks more correct. Much more better. Take our lock ring. Push that on. All there is to that. I'm going to go ahead and press on the pinion bearing. While I love how simple it is to set Backlash on the 11.5 inch AAM with its spin-in adjusters, the kits you buy for these, as far as pinion shims go, every one of them I've done so far comes with pinion race shims, so the shim actually goes in behind the race, which sucks. Sure, in a lot of ways it's probably easier, but it just seems like more work to me. I don't know. Being that we're not doing a gear change and strictly a gear replacement for the ARB failing, we are going to reuse the factory shim that is behind the bearing. Simple enough. Go get some air hooked up and we'll press that on. So the big downside to doing videos while I'm at work like this is having to remove audio from the clips and do voiceovers for a lot of it, just simply to avoid a copyright infringement with the music in the background. So here we're just driving that pinion bearing home. We have our factory shim under the bearing. So our next step here is we're going to go ahead and slide that crush sleeve onto the pinion, and we're going to get that pinion installed in the housing, followed by our outer bearing. So another tip worth mentioning here is pack your pinion seals full of grease on the back side of them. This will help prevent that spring on the lip from popping out while you drive it in. So I got the pinion installed in the housing here. I ended up sucking that outer bearing down using the yoke. From there, went ahead and pulled the yoke back off. At this point, I can install the pinion seal, and we will get a yoke wrench on there and get our pinion bearing preload set. So here I'm actually replacing the wear sleeve on the back of the yoke. So we're going to go ahead and pry off the old one and get our new one tapped on there. Alright, well, just putting some silicone on the inside of the splined portion of the yoke here. This will just ensure that we're not going to have any oil leaking past those splines and out the nut. So here is by far my least favorite part of setting any gears, especially on the 70s, 80s, 11.5 inch AAMs, 14 bolt GMs. They all require a ridiculous amount of torque to crush that sleeve. So here I am with the Boss Man, Got my 3/4 drive Matco ratchet up there on a 3/4 drive 36 millimeter 12-point socket, along with probably a 4-foot section of pipe on the end of that 3/4 drive ratchet. And we're just letting it eat, getting that crush sleeve crushed, and you'll see we'll pull the ratchet off there here in a bit and drop the wrench holding the yoke up on the leaf spring, and we'll actually spin it, and we'll start checking for our pinion bearing preload measurement. Spec on this particular axle for a new bearing is 25 to 45 inch-pounds. I did end up, I want to say right about 30 inch-pounds. That's what we ended up with, so just about perfect. But here you can see the kind of process that goes into that. Takes quite a bit of torque. So in this clip, as well as the previous clip, I am installing the tone wheel and the ring gear onto the carrier. To do this, put them in the pizza oven for about 10 minutes at 300 degrees, get them nice and warm, and they'll fall right on. Alright, well, torque spec is 175 foot-pounds. So I'm going to start by running them down with a 150 foot-pound torque stick. Well, unfortunately, the seal hub came pre-damaged directly from ARB. So in this clip, we're going to go ahead and install the carrier bearing on the opposite side of the carrier that does not require that seal hub. To do this, we'll go ahead and use a special tool I made from the last 11.5 inch AAM axle I did. All it is the two bearing races from that axle welded together. You can see what took that old axle out. Yeah, that race decided to come apart and leave a whole bunch of metal in that carrier. But this will allow me to push against the outside of the bearing and get it past the end of the carrier, because at least as far as the factory carriers go, the bearings sit below the surface of the carrier itself. So if you were to just press it on with a plate, you wouldn't get that bearing completely seated. It turns out that wasn't the case with ARB carrier. It actually, the bearing seats about flush with the carrier, maybe actually protrudes a little, so no big deal there. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Just pressing the bearing on there. So here we're going to go ahead and replace the existing airline going into the carrier, along with all those fittings, with the new stuff supplied with the new ARB air locker. Yeah, this stuff would probably work, but why not replace it if we have the parts? I mean, we got new stuff in the box with it, so might as well put it in there. So here I'm going to go ahead and remove the old solenoid, and I'm going to go ahead and install the new one supplied in the kit. So my replacement seal housing from ARB finally showed up. This one, luckily not damaged. I went ahead, installed the O-rings in that, and installed it on the carrier. I'm going to go ahead and press on this final carrier bearing at this point. Then we'll come back over to the truck and lug the carrier up in the housing and get to setting Backlash. So I kind of ran this footage a little high speed just because it's not super entertaining. This is just me in a struggle trying to feed the copper line through the housing and actually getting the compression fitting on that copper line to fit. And yeah, the nightmare that was, but we'll get it done. So I took an additional 64th of an inch out of that spacer. Went from 9/64 to 5/32. Slid right on. Wouldn't you know it? Spacer and our O-rings. We'll follow that by this guy. Which locks all that in. Well, I looked at this retaining nut a little closer, and it turns out the line's not supposed to protrude past this like I originally thought it would. There's actually a shoulder where the flats are out here that's a line stop. So that's its depth setting. So, simply, I'll set it on there like that, push it down, and then we'll tighten that. So as it turns out, the factory adjusting tool, which is in my hand there, for turning these adjusters in and out, does not work with an ARB carrier. The ARB carrier is slightly wider than the factory carriers, so the holes on the adjusters actually are set back into the axle tubes a little too far to utilize the factory tool. So being that these adjusters are already beat to hell from the previous guy, we're gonna match his style and use a punch and hammer to adjust it. So that's what we're doing here. Fortunately, I had to cut the audio because it was very clear, the music playing. So yeah, you get to listen to me voice over and watch me beat the hell out of these, because why not? So after that first backlash adjustment, looks like we're measuring about 15 thousandths, which without even looking at the manual, I already know that's way too loose. So we'll go ahead and pull the dial indicator back off and spin it in further over to the passenger side and try to tighten it up a little bit. So after adjusting those adjusters over and pushing the carrier over to the passenger side of the truck, managed to get the backlash within spec. Spec is 6 to 10 thousandths, and I got it set right at 7. I'm happy with that. Just like most diesel pickups, I'm sure this guy does some kind of towing, so I would like to see that backlash setting a little tighter. So that should work. Alrighty. Got our adjuster retainers installed. I'm going to go ahead and paint it up and run a pattern. Oh, hot damn, that looks perfect. Get you off the tripod and get you a better look. So here's the coast side of the gear. Nice and centered on the gear. Heel to toe. Good depth. As far as the drive side goes, same story. Those will be nice and quiet. Cool. So I got the compressor running. Let's go ahead and try this thing out. I don't know if you'll actually see anything happen, but we should hear some clickety-clacking, I'm sure. Sure sounds like something's happening. So that's about all there is to setting a ring and pinion on an ARB air locker. Granted, you didn't see me plumb all the airline and wiring a compressor and all that because it was already existing on this truck. This guy even splurged and bought the nice Banks diff cover, so got it filled up with oil. I still have to adjust the valves yet on this truck before I go drive it, but I don't know if I'll have any driving footage of it or not. Either way, really appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And you guys have yourself a good one.